Marama Davidson.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I'm pleased to support my colleague Phil Twyford on behalf of the Green Party in this, the first reading of the Overseas Investment Protection of New Zealand Homebuyers Amendment Bill, because that is what this bill is about. I'll tell you what is ugly. I'll tell you what is ugly. What is ugly is that New Zealand families of all nationalities, of all backgrounds, New Zealand families are being pushed out of their homes. And that's why we support this bill, because it is one tool, one of many tools that the government can and should use to rectify this situation and to lessen the environment that favours houses being used as a business. And so I want to talk a little bit about Otara. My family are connected for, I think, 4 generations now to Otara. And, you know, ironically, Otara is where my grandparents' generation was banished to, in a sense. Otara was the place where the poorer working class families went to. Otara was the place where Māori and Pacific Islanders were sort of pushed to, because that's where it was okay. Not a flash place, that's where it was okay for Māori and Pacific Island families to go to. So they did, and they put down roots. They put down roots for generations. My house, my family house in Hamel Road is one that I remember for 3 generations of my family. The houses in Otara and the families in Otara are being pushed out by the current crisis. They are being uprooted. Investors and speculators, people using homes as a business, are able to overcharge rents and are also able to use the lack of rental protections to evict people and families just because they can charge those higher rents. So yes, we do need to use every single tool that is available to us to rectify this housing crisis that is having real and dire consequences on New Zealand families right now. That is what is ugly. That is what is ugly. And so the housing crisis is big and real. And you know, being locked out of homes, being locked out of housing, used to refer to not being able to buy a home. Today, being locked out of housing means being locked out of even renting a home. And we know this. I've been to Te Puia twice in the past sort of couple of weeks. I've been part of Manurewa Marae Cleaning Bee, who are also preparing to respond to the failure that is currently happening in my own communities and are trying to mop up the government mess of this housing crisis. This is a tool that is fair and reasonable and will play an important part in rectifying the housing crisis. Actually, what we need is a government that will get in, boots and all, and work across government, across systems, across community to prioritise addressing urgently and in the long term the housing crisis. Because if we don't, what is happening today, the dire consequences that we are seeing today, that will continue. And even if we did start today, we will see the fallout for still some years and possibly decades to come. So we also need things like a strong state housing program, but certainly a restriction on overseas investments, on buying up homes in our country is a wise and sensible thing to do. It's not all of what we have to do, but it certainly is one of the tools that we must be employing. And we support this bill because it has conditions in there where actually we would still welcome overseas investment if it was indeed to be able to funnel the benefit of that back into our country, back into allowing New Zealand families to purchase a home and to increase the supply for New Zealand families. So again, it's reasonable. There are things built into this legislation to still allow overseas buying to happen under certain conditions, Mr. Speaker. So, you know, this is one good tool that we have to use. What is this really about, though? This is really about trying to transform the environment that has resulted in the dire, ugly, brutal outfall that we are seeing today, where New Zealanders are living in garages, cars under bridges, on the streets, or are just panicking in the rental property that they own because there's no security for whether they're going to be able to stay there because it's too favourable.
Order.
I've gone over.
You have gone over.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Sorry.
Mark Mitchell.
Mr. Speaker, thank you, Mr. Speaker.